Hey everybody, welcome back to Tech Odyssey. So today I'm here to talk about the OnePlus 9 Pro and how it has a serious problem. OnePlus has been around the block for a little while now. They have been making phones for US carriers starting with T-Mobile going back to the OnePlus 7 Pro. I know, I was at the launch event. It was a great phone. I totally love it. And then they came out with the 7T, they came out with the 8, the 8 Pro, all that jazz, and now we're up to the 9 Pro. But here's the problem. Have you heard about it? Like, do you really know much about this phone other than a lot of the angst that you're seeing out on social media and the internet? Because it seems like now that LG is out of the way, a lot of that ire and a lot of that, okay, it's not as good as Samsung, is starting to move over towards OnePlus and the OnePlus 9 Pro particularly. I have seen nitpicking that goes on about the cameras. I've seen nitpicking about the battery life. I've seen nitpicking about a lot of things. And that's a problem. But also the problem is just awareness, because the tech community is aware of it, and people look at it and they say, okay, well, they find all these reasons to ding it, but then at the same point in time, though, don't go back and readdress the fact that it's actually a really good phone. You just don't know about it, or people that are not watching this video don't know about it, and the big problem is that awareness. See, at least LG had been around for a very long time. People just didn't want to buy them. But by and large, a lot of people like OnePlus phones. When they find out about them, they just don't know. And that creates a problem, because not only are you having good phones that are not getting the awareness they need, but then people won't go out and buy them, because when they do hear about them, it's because when you see out on Twitter, you see out on YouTube, you see these people and they ding, 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 ding. But really, when you put it next to the S21 Ultra and the S21 series phones, it actually holds up really well. IP68 dust and water resistance, dual stereo speakers, 5G, Snapdragon 888, 8 gigabytes of RAM minimum, Quad HD Plus resolution, 120 hertz refresh rate, all the cameras you could ask for. Yeah, I mean, they did cheap out on the selfie camera. I mean, I think universally people can say that they screwed up on that department. But at $969 versus the MSRP you get on the S21 Ultra at $1199, that's about a $250 price difference. And this guy right here, the OnePlus 9 Pro, is actually pretty exceptional. And I'm going to go on and talk about this a little bit more. I've rambled on way too long to get to this point, so I'm not going to worry about the intro. But if you like the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button, and also hit the notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. Now I'm just going to keep talking. So, the OnePlus 9 Pro is an exceptional phone. It's gorgeous too. It is a gorgeous looking phone. Couple different colors, but this silver color just looks beautiful. And some people take this a lot of different ways, but there's even been people complaining about this. And I think that it's beautiful. I think it's a really good looking phone. There are even people complaining about it not having a matte finish and it having a glossy finish, and saying that it picks up a bunch of fingerprints. Well, I mean, you can see somewhat, but it's really not that big of a deal. One, they wipe off. And two, you're going to have a case on your phone anyway. So I think that it's funny, though, when you look at the level of nitpicking and scrutiny that this phone has received, it means that it's good. Like, normally people are like, look, if you're getting hate, then that means you're doing something right. And I'm not going to say I'm the biggest OnePlus fan. I am not the biggest OnePlus fan in the world. Of course, I'm the biggest BlackBerry fan in the world. But when it comes to Android phones, the more recent ones and these flagship level phones, OnePlus has brought a lot to the table for a while. I finally got on board with the 6T. Good phone. Really love the 7 Pro. I didn't get the 7T. I had the 8, the 8T. I have the 8 Pro now, which is cool. Getting to test that one out as well. But the 9 Pro, I think, is finally the first very serious flagship contender. Last year, I seriously criticized the 8 Pro when it came out because I didn't think it was quite at $1,000. Like, I didn't think OnePlus deserved to charge $1,000 for a phone. Like, they had not earned that rite of passage yet. But and who really is the person that decides that? And also, when you look at what Samsung's been doing with their $1,100, $1,200, and $1,300 phones, you look at what Apple does with their $1,000 and $1,100 baseline phones, having a $900, $969 phone, I think is perfectly okay when you bring all the same stuff to the table. They even have their collaboration with Hasselblad for the color tuning and some stuff for this phone, but it's supposed to be a long-term partnership. Like, one of the biggest complaints about OnePlus phones for the last couple of years has always been camera, camera, camera. And I think that's like a stomping point now. Like, I think people are really just hammering in on that because historically their cameras have not been on the same level has Samsung and iPhone. In some areas they have, but not completely. And yes, does this have the most amazing cameras in the world? Maybe it doesn't. I mean, I've taken some photos and they look perfectly good to me. And that's the litmus test, I think. I am not an expert camera reviewer by any stretch of the imagination. There are people that will try and tell you that there are things about this camera that are no good. Are there things that are not as good as maybe Samsung or Apple? Yeah, there might be. But there's also some areas that it does excel. So I think you need to take the good with the bad. And also, I think that it has a perfectly good camera for a $1,000 phone. I don't have any complaints about it. So, is it necessarily like on the exact same level? Maybe it's like 95% of what the Samsung One is. Who cares? It's good. It's going to take all the pictures you want. Now, are the selfies the most amazing in the world? No, it's not as built out as it is on the Samsung phone. Can you shoot 4K at 60 frames per second for like an unlimited amount of time? No, you can't. It has a time limit on it. It has issues when it comes to that. But those are like fringe small things. Those are like nitpicky things. Like if you're going to complain about that, then maybe you should also complain about how the Samsung phone doesn't come with a charger. Maybe also complain that it doesn't have expandable storage. Maybe also complain they took out the MST payment methods. So those are some things you need to take into consideration. Are any of these phones perfect? No, they're definitely not. But they compete. They compete for a price point. They compete at a tier level. And I think that the OnePlus 9 Pro holds its weight. I think it does. And I think what's going to happen is maybe over the next month or two, as more people get these in their hands, I think you're going to find that the positive sentiment will much greatly outweigh the negative stuff that has come out. And one thing that was even more frustrating is I was watching all these negative things about the phone, and they were talking about the camera stuff. It was pre-release software. There's been like 2 or 3 updates to this phone since it just came out not too long ago. So OnePlus is very active in the software update department. They're very active in trying to optimize their phones. And that's another strong suit when it comes to this phone. And it will probably even end up with Android 12 faster than the Samsung phone, because OnePlus is traditionally very good with getting their operating system updates out quick, like the Pixel, for their flagship phones. So that is one little area that I need to talk about, is the negative sentiment and how it's being like received in some of the tech community market. But also is the marketing. A lot of people are going to walk into a T-Mobile store, into a Verizon store, into an AT&T store, and they're going to see the Samsung phone in the front, they're going to see the Apple iPhone in the front, and they're not going to see the OnePlus phone. And before, it was even worse because there were LG phones out on the shelves as well. So there might be a small dedicated space on the back wall somewhere or on the side wall for the OnePlus phone, but then you're going to walk over there and look at it, and people are like, oh yeah, that's nice, but I mean, you can look at the Samsung or you can look at the iPhone. So the brand awareness is a big issue, and a lot of people talked about this. I think they're doing a decent job trying to permeate the U.S. market. They are finally starting to take hold in some of the carrier stores, but even looking back at last year with the OnePlus 8 phones, the 8 went to T-Mobile, but the 8 Pro didn't. You couldn't get the 8 Pro anywhere around. You had to get it and then use it on your network. So I think that they made a step in the right direction, making the 8 Pro available on T-Mobile, but they're going to have to take this to the next level, because what you're seeing out there right now is not a very positive campaign in a lot of the tech space, where people go to YouTube, they go to Twitter, they go to these different social media outlets to learn about products. So if that's what they see as soon as the phone comes out, and then nothing, crickets, it dies off, there's no continued push to market these phones, then all people have is that initial bad taste, and then nothing. And that's the same thing that LG has had problems with for years. It comes out, it gets an onslaught of negative publicity, even though it doesn't merit it, and then everybody moves on. And they're like, oh, I can't wait for the next Samsung. I can't wait for the next iPhone. Oh, this one was good, but I'm going to wait for the next one. And I've seen a lot of that. I hear a lot of that. And that's what people who are interested in seeing these phones, seeing alternatives to Samsung and Apple, and you would think it would be a positive thing. Like, people don't like Apple. People don't like Samsung. So you would think that generally people would want competition, and they would want very competent and capable alternatives. And that's what you get right here. And OnePlus has done a heck of a better job over the last couple of years trying to meet the demand for a legitimate third-party Android phone to challenge LG, and also challenge Samsung particularly, and another alternative that is out there to Apple. So I think that this is something that OnePlus can fix. I think that they can do a good job, ideally, marketing this and pushing it into the future, but right now it's a serious problem. And I haven't seen a whole lot of positive traction ever since this phone was announced and released, and instantly, before people even got the phones in their hands, we're trashing them. So I hope that maybe as this gets a little bit more permeated out into normal people's hands, that the feedback will be positive. It will work its way up into a positive space where people can get objective and good information on the phones. Not that people aren't making decent reviews. Hopefully time will be a much better judge of this device, and having used it for about 2 days now, I can say that it's really good. Like, I don't really have any serious complaints. I think that the battery life could be better. 4,500 milliamp battery, and I'm getting about 5 hours of screen on time, which is about on par with what I was maxing out on my S21 Ultra, which actually has a 5,000 milliamp battery. And people are going to harp on that. But then you also look at the fact that the OnePlus 9 Pro has a 65 watt charger in the box that will recharge from 1% to 100% in 20 minutes, which your Samsung cannot do. And it doesn't have a charger in the box anyway, so good luck with that. And then go buy a 65 watt charger, because those suckers are expensive. So there are actually a lot of really good selling points for this phone. I think it's the most complete OnePlus phone ever, and I think it competes the best. It feels the most flagship-like out of any OnePlus phone I've ever used, and I think that it looks good. I think it's a really sharp-looking phone, and I think that it can do great things. But we just got to see how well it's continued to receive out in the community, how well it's received, and the feedback we get from consumers. And then also, hopefully, there will be a marketing push by OnePlus, especially now that LG is out of the way, to really solidify that position to make them the #1 alternative to Samsung. So that's why I say this phone has a big problem, because it has a lot of hurdles it has to overcome. But I think if it can just stay the course and weather a lot of this storm, then it'll be in a good place and it'll be looked well on, especially at the end of the year. Because what's going to happen at the end of the year is MKBHD is going to come around and do his cell phone, smartphone, best of categories. I really wouldn't be surprised if he picks this as his #1 phone at the end of the year. So that's all I've got in this video. Hopefully you found this helpful and informative. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and you maybe see where I'm coming from when I talk about there being a problem for this phone. Not so much for the OnePlus 9. The OnePlus 9 is a very good phone as well, but it's a much lower price point, and there's not really a whole lot that competes with it, so a lot more people will gravitate towards that phone. It'll be a harder upsell for people to walk away with a OnePlus 9 Pro than it is for a OnePlus 9, because they very well target that market, especially with that price point. Because I would much rather get a OnePlus 9 over a Pixel 5 any day of the week. So that's all I've got on this video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down in the comments section. I will get back with you. If you enjoy the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.